Hey everybody, welcome back to REI Partners. This is video number 3. We're going to talk about tenant screening and lease execution. Tenant screening and lease execution is very, very important because obviously without the tenants moving in and signing a lease, you have no way to get paid. But doing that has to be very tactical and very smart because you want to make sure you're avoiding some potential bad scenarios with tenants who might not follow directions, or not be able to promise or follow through with their promise. Good tenants can become the backbone of your business, but bad tenants will become a massive headache that you're going to wish you had the time in the beginning to sort through. So we're going to break that down just a little bit here. The rental application process is critical. Using systems like Zillow Rental Manager or Apartments.com, they give you customizable applications for everything starting from the very, very beginning. You create the listing, you put it up there, the public can see it. Then the tenant can now click on that listing, see if they want to move there or consider looking into it more, and then they can actually apply for the unit right there. That application is free to you, but it costs them some money in some cases. Zillow, for example, has a subscription where you can pay for a month and you get unlimited applications. I'm not sure if apartments.com offers that, but to give you an idea, you can do this all through that one section. They apply through that apartment, it notifies the owner, you look through it. Oh, John, he does this is his income, this is his credit, this is his history, and it gives you all that information right from within that system. You can then invite that person to move into that unit by scheduling a time to meet. You can then complete their lease and everything right within there, do their rentals, collect their rent, talk about maintenance. It's very impressive what these things do now. So consider using one of those tools. If you're going to do it the old school way with a spreadsheet, QuickBooks, and checker money, again, it's all about staying compliant, making sure you're organized, and if you're using paper, just make sure that paper is stored somewhere secure. Fair housing rules we're going to go back to all the time. Do not get yourself into trouble with discrimination. There are some rare cases where if you live in a house, it's your house, and you're cohabitating with someone else, renting a room, you can, in theory, discriminate a little bit to the people who live in your house. However, if it's not your house, you must follow these rules. Talk to an attorney if you have any questions about this stuff, because you need to familiarize yourself with the protected classes under all the laws and avoid discriminatory language in any of your leases, your interviews, your screening practices, your listings, any of that stuff. Credit and background checks are huge. Again, these should be done through the vendor who you're doing the leasing with, or if you're doing it third party, do your own background check on the credit company. Make sure that all they do is soft credit pulls and they do comprehensive criminal background checks. That's super important. Some of those private sources do cost the landlord money, but in the end, if it does, and you get good information from it that prevents you from having to, lose 6 months of rent and go through eviction court, it's worth the money. You're looking for things like evictions, bankruptcies, violent crimes, or just consistent unpaid debt. These are things that are warning signs to you that there might be a problem with this person over time as a tenant. You can choose to overlook other debt like medical, student debt. Those are always things that actually medical you really don't have a choice with, and student debt is actually them bettering themselves. So, use your discretion with stuff like that. But when you're looking at those, you want to make sure you have criteria set for what you're going to accept for your tenants. For example, their income must be at least 3 times that of the monthly gross rent. For example, if your rent's $1,000, but they only make $1,500 a month because they have a part-time job, there will be a time in the very near future where they're going to have to choose between paying for food and paying your rent. Unless they have substantial savings, which they might, you can ask them that. You need to make sure that this person can consistently pay the rent in your unit, or you're setting yourself up for failure. Rare cases apply, or it might be the exception, but stick to a rule similar to this one, in my opinion. Credit score is another thing. Someone who's young might not have an established credit score. 18, 19 years old, out on their own, maybe they can get a cosigner on the loan or the rent because they're going to need it. You can't prove that they're a good repayment unless they're going to come with some other form of approval for you. So 600 plus credit score minimum or conditional approval with an increased security deposit. But make sure you stick to your rules about security deposit in your state, because in our area, you can't ask for more than 2 months rent in a security deposit. No evictions in the past 5 years, but really no evictions anytime. and then check references. You want to check references with both the um, previous landlords, if they have any, and their job to make sure their job is secure and to make sure there's no crazy things going on there. Just realize that people, if they're going to say nothing, that's usually saying something. And if they talk negative, there might be some beef that happened between them in the past, but just take it for face value. Include these expectations, the monthly income, credit score, and eviction in the listing and reiterate them during your showings. If you're going to accept Section 8 or housing vouchers, also put that in your listing. If you're not going to accept it, again, this is a whole separate training, put that in there as well so people know right out the gate. When you're verifying references, contact the current and previous landlords. You want to talk about payment history, lease violations, noise complaints, or anything that might be an issue for you. Realize these people are moving out for one reason or another, and you might not get the full story, or you might get more than you bargained for. So just take that for what it's worth. And if they're not willing to list the previous landlord, that is a red flag to us. There's something that went on. You need to figure it out. A note on background checks and verification. Sometimes these systems, when you get an applicant, they don't do a thorough and complete job of searching outside the box things. For example, there might be civil complaints in neighboring counties. There might be civil complaints in neighboring states. So trust but verify. Go to the state website, check the state police background, check the status of their sexual predator history. These are things that, although technically they have rights, I don't know that I would be able to rent to someone in a building with kids if that was the case. I would have to have a very blunt conversation. But again, this is an attorney question. You might actually not be able to say no to that person. So just think about this. Speak with employers. Verify the job and their stability. Hey, is this guy in good standing? How long they've worked here? See what their real story is. Again, if they're not willing to share it, it's probably a concern. Search online court dockets like we just talked about for evictions and judgments, and then use local police portals for any public criminal record. So this is where you're going to trust that application, but you're going to verify it. Once you get an application, you're going to verify it with an in-person interview. Like we talked about in video 2, you are never, ever going to rent to a person who you haven't met in person. There's a caveat to this. If you buy a property and the tenant's in place already, you can't do any of this. They have a lease. They have right to the property, even if they're a felon with $0 income. Just keep that in mind. Upon lease renewal, in order for that tenant who was in place when you bought the property to remain in place, you do have the right to ask for these things to be done as part of a lease renewal, but you cannot do this as part of a lease when you buy the property and it's already there. But with new and fresh tenants, the interviews have to be in person. Conduct it with a walkthrough. Talk to them, see their behavior. Do they show up on time? Are they respectful? Ask them all the hard questions. Why are you moving? What are you looking to move into? Or when are you looking to move in? What do you like about this place? What do you like about the area? Just kind of shake them out, see what's happening. And then the gut check really, really is important here. Everyone has a really good judge of character and background. So first impressions matter. Something's feel off, totally trust the instinct and don't think twice about it. Don't discriminate. Say that over and over again. Document the reason if you deny someone based on your legal criteria, and just give them a simple answer. I'm sorry, the unit was rented to someone else. If they ask why, then that's when the conversation starts, and you need to be very careful with how much you divulge. Lease execution and signing the lease is the next step. Once they've applied, you're happy that they're part of your tenant base, you've invited them, you've met them at the property, they see the property, they like it, and they're someone you'd like to consider having be your tenant, you want to have a solid state compliant lease for your area. In this area, as real estate agents, we could use PAR or Pennsylvania Association of Realtor lease. You can customize it with relevant terms like when it's due, utility responsibilities, late fees, any addendums you want. I have a list of so many addendums on the bottom of my leases that are things that we've accumulated and things we've gotten burned on over the years. So I'd be more than happy to share that with you guys. They'll be in the resource file here. You just want to make sure it's thorough. But remember, when you're self-managing, you're writing the lease, and you're the one that has to defend it when things go down. So just make sure you really understand this document. Talk to someone smarter than you about it and make sure you complete it in full. When you're completing this lease, the first lease always should be done in person and talked about line by line. And I understand that might be a lot for some of you if you've never done this before, but this is very, very important for you to understand that you have a obligation to teach this person about the contract that they're signing, even though you're not an attorney. Encourage them to take it to their attorney and realize that they're probably never going to do that. But you need to go through line by line and say, this is your due date. This is your due amount. And if it is late, it is not going to be good because after 5 days, your late fee applies. Here it is. And after that, eviction is going to start. No questions. You have to make it very clear, professional, but clear in the beginning. You are not going to tolerate any sort of late fee. You are not going to tolerate any sort of issues in the property. If they don't perform on that contract in any way, you will enforce the rules immediately. It establishes a level of respect and professionalism, but also sternness, or you're not going to get taken for a bath if they just decide, oh, this guy I can walk all over because he's nice. No, don't let nice be confused with getting walked all over. So line by line, make sure they know what the alternative to complying with the lease is. But also you need to make sure that you are going to perform the same way as a landlord. I'm going to immediately fix safety concerns. I'm going to immediately respond to maintenance requests. I'm going to make sure that I'm attentive to you during business hours. After business hours, not going to hear from me unless the place is on fire. Be a good landlord. Do your side of the promise too, but make sure when you're going through the lease, explaining this line by line. Lease addendums can be part for other things that might be not described in full in the main lease. Pet policies, renter's insurance, maintenance, anything else. For example, our pet addendum is a 2-page addendum that talks about anything you can imagine with this pet. It really is us allowing them to bring a pet in certain scenarios, explaining what the pet can be, what I expect from that pet, its insurance, and what happens when the pet doesn't do nice pet things. Renter's insurance is huge. Do not let anyone move into a property unless you can show proof that their renter's insurance has been paid and that they can show proof of this during every renewal that it remains consistent. You must be named as an additionally insured or policyholder so that you're notified when this renter's insurance lapses. As we talked about in the beginning, renter's insurance only covers the tenant's personal items and the people that they bring their liability. It does not cover anything with the building if something goes wrong. Just like your insurance with the building does not cover anything for the tenant if something goes wrong with the building. It's absolutely mandatory, and you'd be a fool to not have it. Trust me, I've gotten burned twice now by people who've let their insurance policies expire. Then we had a problem in the property just a few days later. And guess what? You can't pull blood from a stone. So, maintenance addendums are expectations and any property-specific rules. If you have a multi-unit with common areas, or if you have a bigger apartment complex where there might be rules, those all have to be included in the lease. Other things, there's lead-based paint addendums, lead-based paint disclosures if the property is built before 1978, and maybe an additional terms addendum that shows, hey, you can't use fireworks, you can't use water beds, you can't use grills on the porch under the roof, no big trampolines. All this stuff, you have to keep the heat above 55 degrees or you're going to freeze the pipes if you go on vacation for a week and want to save on your electric bill. You have to put this stuff in there because if it happens, you have to reference, you signed this on this day. What's the problem? In-person signing for first-time tenants. Sit down, review it. Provide 2 copies, one for them, one for you, but they sign both. After the fact, scan it, email it to them and say, hey, here's your lease. As a reminder, here are the basic terms. Please call me if you have any questions. For renewals after the first year, it is okay to send electronic, in my opinion, electronic leases and do this all digitally, but it only can be done after you've done a thorough walkthrough of the property. So we give our people 60 days notice. Hey, these are the terms of your new lease. If you'd like to renew, if these are okay with you, we will be coming by on this day and this time for a safety check and unit walkthrough. Please make sure the unit's presentable. Don't give them an option of what day or what time, because if it's more than 24 hours, again, based on your state laws and your lease laws, you can dictate a time that is when you're coming in and they don't have a choice, because you don't want to give them a window, days, times. It's just never going to work like that. So make it convenient for you. And you very simply say, I'm coming at this day and this time. If you give them at least a week's notice, there should be no problem. Let me know if you're going to be home or if I will be using a key. Leave it at that. Hopefully they're home, because you want to talk to them. You want to see how they're doing. You want to be a good person about it. But with renewals, that's how you handle it. A unit walkthrough, do a safety check, take pictures. Never, ever sign a new lease with someone unless you've been in that property. And find an excuse to get in there at least once every 6 months, if not every quarter, for a safety check, a walkthrough, something like that. Not to be confused with being overbearing landlord, but to get in there and double check to make sure that your unit is intact. You have the right, it's your property, it's their living space, your property. At that in-person walkthrough, when you're getting ready to sign the lease or you're signing the lease together, that's when you collect first month's rent and security deposit. The first step in this is, number one, property walkthrough. Number two, collect the security deposit and collect the rent. Then, number three, sign the lease. After you've proven that they have renter's insurance in place and they've given you a copy showing you as additionally insured. For the first month's rent and security deposit, cash or money order only. This is a new tenant that does not have proof of payment with you yet. They don't have any track record. This is the only true way of having hard proof that this is real money. Never accept a check. Never accept something digitally. First month's rent, cash or money order only. And then realize you're going to be carrying that cash or money order away. So just kind of use your head. Place the security deposit and the cash in the bank. Two separate deposits so they can be tracked that way. Security deposit in its account, rent in the other account. And then over the next few days to weeks, you could set up their online portal in their software suite, whatever you're going to use, Zillow or apartments.com, to then set up auto withdrawal from their bank. You never get their bank account or credit card information. They input it all, and the system tells you when they're ready to pay. Here's the renter's insurance plug again. You just can't simply rent to someone without this, unfortunately. Don't question it. A minimum, absolute minimum of $30,000 in personal articles coverage for their stuff. And then a minimum of $100,000 liability to use the owner is the absolute bare minimum of what you have. That policy at any big company, Erie, State Farm, Progressive, will be about $12 to $15 a month. It's cheap and it's very, very good to have. The move-in process. You want to move in together as part of all this. Detailed checklist, the move-in, move-out checklist. Take pictures. Take pictures as you're going through with them so they know you're documenting this. They should sign off on this report too, acknowledging that when they moved in, this unit was completely rehabbed, no issues whatsoever. So that anything to the contrary can be brought up when they move out with a security check and a deposit consideration. With the orientation, show them how to operate the thermostat, shut off the water and gas, use fire extinguishers. That's huge. If there's a security system, teach them how to do it. Provide contact numbers, emergency instructions, and all the utility providers. Their electricity and gas should be set up beforehand if they can go in their name. So give them that information. But you want to make sure that this is actually happening before the tenant starts assuming liability for these. Give them a summary sheet. Be a good host. Don't do everything for them, but be a good host. Give them a sheet with all the information, because in the end, they're the ones that are going to save your property if there's a fire. They're the ones that are going to save your property if there's a gas or a water leak. The stuff that you teach them on the walkthrough will save your property. Spend 30 seconds and teach them how to use a fire extinguisher. Pull the pin, point it at the base of the fire, and swing side to side. And then call 911. Simple stuff. The final delivery can be done after all this is said and done. Give them their keys, record how many keys you had, welcome packet, and a copy of all documents. These can be done electronically, and then reiterate the expectations. That's it. After that, it's their house. You do not have the right to go in, and again in Pennsylvania, within 24 hours notice, unless there is an emergency or threat to property and life. After that, just be someone who answers their call and attends to them swiftly. If there's a maintenance concern, just take care of it. Don't be the nickel and dime guy. It's gonna affect your business. I can promise you that. And then one final tip: slow down to speed up. This is great advice. Tenant selection in the beginning and spending time picking the right tenant for you will save so much time and sanity as you develop your portfolio. Is the most important decision you can make as a landlord, even more important than buying the property, because the property is just a shell. It doesn't do anything without tenants. The tenants are your customer who pays your bills. You want to pick a consistent customer over time instead of picking one foul swoop. If you're in this for short-term rental or mid-term rentals, that's a different type of investing. This is long-term rental tenants. I would rather have a tenant at $1,000 a month for 10 years than 10 people at $1,400 a month. Because if you do the math, in between each of those tenants, there is vacancy, there is turnover, there is cleaning, there's wear and tear. Stability wins every time. The whole tortoise and the hare story is real. So that's it for tenant, applicant, and moving in, completing the lease. In the final video, we're going to go through ongoing management, maintenance cycles, and how to handle renewals. So hopefully we'll get you going like a pro. We'll see you in the next video.